I'm out. I've heard about these. Okay. Dang it. Come on. Oh. The old battlefield pickup. Something you hear a lot about in the preparedness community, but sometimes for the wrong reasons. But I'm not gonna lie, the battlefield pickup concept might actually have some truth to it as well, especially based on historical precedent. But there are some things you should be aware of before you go planning on the battlefield pickup being your ticket to having, well, better weaponry for any type of disaster scenario. So I do want to mention Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. Thanks to them, I can get out here on the range, mess around with, well, battlefield pickups like this one, and actually, get better at using them so I don't just fumble the magazine reload or not even know how to charge the thing. So big thanks to Midway USA. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people actually plan on battlefield pickups as being their ticket to a better weapon system. That's a bad idea. You should never plan on using someone else's equipment. It's just lazy. I don't know what else to say. You're not going to be proficient with something you've never used before. You won't know if it's set up in a certain way or for a certain purpose, and at the same time, how do you expect to survive a scenario where you're going to find something like this in your hands if you don't already have something like this? I'm not really sure how that plays out, unless you're just hiding in the shadows, waiting for everybody to deal with each other, and then you just show up afterward to clean up the mess. I'm not sure. But there is some practicality to the battlefield pickup concept, and there are some practical reasons for why you might own something like an AK instead of an AR-15 or in addition to your AR-15, so you can learn the manual of arms. So historically, soldiers have used their enemy's weapons in multiple different periods of history based on logistics and ammunition shortages and all types of other things, sometimes just based on the weapon systems themselves being desirable. So let's talk about some examples of battlefield pickups that gives you some reason to believe it might actually be a real thing. It might be a possibility if you find yourself in a big time SHTF type scenario. So for example, the Battle of Stalingrad, right? World War II, German soldiers were, well, known to use Mosin Nagants from time to time based on ammunition shortages because of their supply lines being disrupted and needing, long-range, high-caliber rifle fire. So they went with the Mosin Nagants that they were able to capture. And they also often sought out the Papasha 41s, which, they're basically submachine guns, and they were known to be desirable, let's just say. So that's one example from history where battlefield pickups were a legitimate thing. Another example would be the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, American and South Vietnamese forces used AK-47s because they captured them, and in some ways they maybe were more acclimated to the environment, let's just say. And special forces actually, whenever they did cross-border operations, were often seen with AK-47s because of logistics. Because if you're going cross-border, you're not going to find a bunch of 5.56 laying around, but you might find some 7.62 by 39, right? So sensible, it's reasonable, and they're using the weapons of their enemies. Even in the American Civil War, there was a lot of examples of soldiers from both sides using battlefield pickups because, well, supply lines were constantly under attack. And because of that, they kind of had to use whatever they could get their hands on. So it was not unheard of to see soldiers taking weapons off of other soldiers and then implementing them in the next battle. So all those things happen throughout history. So the idea of a battlefield pickup is a legitimate concept. The issue is when people start planning on it, and that's not what we should be doing. Planning on a battlefield pickup for your main weapon system just isn't sensible, right? There's a lot of things that you need to learn and that you need to get comfortable with a weapon system like this one before you're going to be effective with it in the field. And not to mention the fact that getting to the point of picking up something off a battlefield without having some way of, defending yourself in the process, probably has some difficulties, let's just say. So, I wanted to bring this up because, we talk about it a lot. And in all honesty, one of the reasons I got this AK was so I could learn the manual of arms of my adversaries. because a lot of our adversaries around the world use the AK platform. So getting good at using it and at least understanding it means that if that battlefield pickup situation ever occurred in some weird off chance scenario that's very unlikely, if it ever happened, I'd at least know how to pick up an AK and do some work with it. But not everybody has that capability. And if you don't have these things to train with now, you shouldn't assume you'll be good with them just because they show up. Now, I will say, one of the few things you could justify in the sense of a battlefield pickup over something you already own or have training on could be something relevant to, let's just say, something automatic, right? Since we don't have the ability to, well, generally, we don't have the ability to use automatic weapons, finding one post a battlefield scenario could be a good idea, let's just say, right? That could help you out in the sense of suppressive fire and in some other situations as well, where that ability to switch over to full auto might be beneficial. So that's one of the arguments I hear that has some reasonability to it, right? Like, if you're going to have a plan for a battlefield pickup, it shouldn't be that that's going to be your primary weapon, that you don't have anything until you get a battlefield pickup. That's a bad idea. But to plan on trying to find something that has a little bit more capability than what we can own on the civilian side in order to give yourself a force multiplier, that statement so many people love to say and also cringe while saying it, well, that's a little bit more reasonable in my opinion. So, listen, is this my way of just justifying having a Romanian Draco SBR that I somewhat tricked out and just really wanted to have? No, definitely not. But are there practical reasons for why I'd want to learn how to use the AK platform? Definitely. Are there reasons why battlefield pickups might be reasonable? Yes. Should you plan on them being your number one plan? Yeah, of course not. So let me know in the comments below what you think about all that, because it comes up a lot and I get it, but it definitely shouldn't be your priority. It should be an opportunity situation where, hey, you know, select fire sounds like a decent idea. And I know where some stuff just went down where I heard some select fire going on, and it's possible we might be able to find ourselves some extra weaponry in the process, right? That seems reasonable. But to say, hey, I'm going to go over there and get my first gun now because all that just happened, probably not a good idea. And training on different weapon systems can slow down your progress when it comes to being proficient, but it can open up your capabilities to a battlefield pickup scenario where if you've never run an AK, you might fumble it. If you've never shot, I don't know, an MP5, you might not know how to load it or charge it properly, right? There's a lot of different mechanics when it comes to the manual of arms of all these different platforms, and if you have zero experience, it's probably going to show. So keep that in mind as well. Anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. If you want to support the channel directly, you can go to Subscribestar. It's $5 a month to get private live streams and some other stuff too. If you want to do that, I'll put a link down below. Anything else you need from me at all, you know what to do. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.